Prepare to be stabbed and have your insides shoveled out and consumed, all with the help of Tin Can.
Opener. Come on, you gotta admit it. The top of his head kinda looks like a can opener.
ShinRobjira.
Today we're going to be looking at the Bandai The Godzilla Collection Mechagodzilla 1974, the 1995 Memorial Box version. I got this off of eBay for a pretty big steal, and it seems these are starting to go down in price, so keep your eyes peeled. Now before we get started with paint and detail, we have to talk about the card. Not the tag, but the card. Since this thing was released with the 1995 Memorial Box, the figures weren't exactly tagged. They came with cards. And as you can see, we have the poster for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, King Caesar, Anguirus. And it says right in the corner there, 1995 made in Japan. And take a look at that poster art up close. It is fantastic. And here we have the back of the card, and there's really not too much going on here. And since this is of a larger size than the standard Movie Monster Series tag, it is actually going to stay in the little baggie that it came with. Do they even make top loaders in this size? Does anybody know? If you do, comment down below. Let me know. But anyway, enough about a piece of cardboard. Let's take a look at this magnificent hunk of vinyl. Now, from what I can gather, the paint on this guy differs from the original release simply in the shading. It's in different places on this figure. On the original, I do believe, well, we'll have pictures floating around over here somewhere. There used to be paint over here, paint on the hands. Here, it's more so on the legs and on the back, as well as the shoulder area this go around. And this guy is actually lacking one thing. He doesn't have any gold on the teeth, which is something the original release featured, and I'm really not all that bummed out about it. I mean, really, when looking at it, are you really going to be upset about not having gold teeth? The silver paint is fantastic, and I do enjoy the shading, but what I enjoy the most is simply the detail and the size of this figure, but we'll get into size a little bit later. Everywhere you look, this guy is just coated in amazing little details, and oh my god. I'm so very upset that the Bandai Movie Monster series hasn't really done anything with the 74 mold. Granted, they'd have to make a whole new mold because it seems Bandai is rather against bringing back the molds of yesteryear. And while I don't doubt that they would bring a whole new loving sense of detail to the original Mechagodzilla, I really do feel that this figure right here is just the perfect package in terms of pretty much everything. Yeah, it is a bit of a bummer that the MG on both of his arms over here isn't painted orange. They're kind of just, you know, there. But look at everything else on this figure, man. It's so hard not to just love it. And we don't got that stupid, random, not very well blended in streak of the dark, smoky gray on his tail like we got with the battle damage color version Mechagodzilla 75. Nah, man, this is just beautiful. It's perfect. He's even got detail on the tip of his little tail over here. And look at all of the amazing detail on the back of the leg. Hell, even the side of the leg. Even on the back of the foot. Even on the side of the foot, kind of. Oh! Can't forget Bandai Footstamp, Japan, 1983, and a whole bunch of stuff over here. The Godzilla collection might have not been the most screen-accurate line of Bandai figures, but the amount of quality that went into them, coupled with the beefy sizes that they sported. Beefy. 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 Beefaroni. It's kind of hard to not want all this stuff back. But anyway, I just realized that I've been speaking way too much on detail. Back to paint. We've got the little red pepperonis for the ears. We've got a faded yellow gold for the eyes. He really doesn't look all that intimidating, though. He kind of looks like I just gave him the wrong order at McDonald's and he's wondering where his Big Mac is. But anyway, another red pepperoni for the ears. We've got this smoky gray, almost black on the dorsal fins over here, and they look amazing. Said paint will be on both sides, of course. And since this was sprayed on, there is going to be some residue of it in certain areas, like on the back of the tail, for example. And you can kind of tell that it was somewhat heavily applied on one side than the other. But I don't know, it really doesn't look bad, and it doesn't look like it was flimsily painted. I mean, maybe a little bit heavy-handed, but it doesn't come off, what were you doing? You know what I'm saying? I guess what I'm trying to say is, it looks like it's supposed to be there. It doesn't feel massively out of place, and it doesn't look like it was so carelessly applied, like on the 75 MG2 over here. Although when it comes to the shoulder blades and the thigh area, you can tell that it was really only painted on the front end, but when you look on the back, it's rather blank. Getting some heavy paint apps Kiryu vibes from this. Even on the front, it almost looks like it's not present. You know what I'm saying? The side, the front. The side, the back. And here we have it on the thighs, and it looks magnificent, but you turn it to the side and whammo. Not too much. Turn it to the back and whammo, not too much again. Turn it to the side on the opposite side, a little bit better, but it's really the front that got the brunt of it all. It almost kind of makes me feel bad for complaining about heavy paint apps Kiryu, just because it was clearly a practice that Bandai's been doing since the very beginning. But then you get a figure like the damage color version of Mechagodzilla and you realize, okay, Bandai, you're clearly able to do this. Oh, how could I forget 8-inch Bandai Movie Monster Series Kiryu? No excuse. But again, we're talking about a figure that originally released in the late 80s and early 90s and was re-released in the mid-90s, so I've covered all I really need to cover when it comes to paint and detail on this guy, and despite him having some half-painted areas, I'm still going to give him 2 solid stars in terms of paint and detail, because he just looks so very friggin' cool. And now I guess it's time to talk about articulation. MG74 can move all the way around at the head, he can move all the way around at the arm, all the way around at the other arm, all the way around at the leg, and the other leg. Nothing at the torso, and nothing at the tail. Honestly, as long as I can lift his arms up like this, I'm perfectly fine when it comes to articulation. If I can honestly add anything to this figure, it would just be a swivel at the waist. I feel like that's kind of just needed with Mechagodzilla figures, mostly Showa-era Mechagodzilla figures. But even then, I think he's just fine for what he is, so that's going to be another solid star for articulation. Because yet again, all I really need is this. Although swivels at the wrist would have been cool. Size comparison time. Small, medium, large, and all related pieces. Finally, a Bandai Japan 74 tin can. The weight was super worth it, and in all accounts, a 100% non-regrettable purchase, as I now have one of every movie-used Mechagodzilla design. Well worth the time and the very little money I spent to finally add this guy into my collection. I highly recommend it. Quick little side note here, before I was talking about the heavy paint applications Kiryu figure when mentioning the half-paintedness of the 95 Mechagodzilla over here, and instead of just leaving it up to the imagination, I figure I would show what I was talking about. Heavy paint apps Kiryu over here indeed does have the heavy paint applications, but portions of the side and the back of the figure remain mostly unpainted, and it just looks a little on the weird side. The major comparison being, Bandai's been doing this since the 80s and 90s. And honestly, I now feel a little silly giving heavy paint apps Kiryu as hard a time as I did. Granted, I don't think this revelation excuses heavy paint apps Kiryu from having half-painted nature, simply because he is an exclusive and everything, and I am not going to let go of that narrative. But regardless, this thing still looks awesome. Oh yes, and I just noticed this, but he's got black shading on top of his little can opener spike on his head. Go figure. And you know what? In this same breath, let's say Bandai is going to re-release this mold, but it's going to be sized down and is going to have modernized paint. What would I want it to look like? Easy. Bandai America Mechagodzilla 1974. Not mold-wise, I have to say it again, just paint-wise. If we could get this lovable metallic loaf over here painted up somewhat similar to this, I'd be happy. I'm talking about all the trimmings being painted. Not even this dark, just slightly darker. I genuinely think a paint job similar to this would just breathe all new love and life into this mold, or whatever mold Bandai would likely use. Because again, I don't think we would ever see them reusing a Godzilla collection mold these days. Now, I'm not saying do it all the same, but definitely fill in the MGs on the new Movie Monster Series figure, if it ever happens. But keep this level of shading on his back, though. Don't do blank, just do this. I think it would be perfect. But that's just me. Why don't you let me know what you all think in the comment section below, and now let's get back on track. Here's to hoping that Bandai will eventually make another 74 Mechagodzilla mold, and here's to hoping that it won't be a Godzilla store exclusive, because even though I do have my way of getting those, I really hate when they put a specific character, a specific mold of that character, and make it an exclusive. It's like Gorosaurus and even the more recently released Damage Color version 75 Mechagodzilla. I feel like those should have been more widely released, but I guess you gotta hook them in somehow. I have been ShinRobjira. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to all my lovely patrons, and until next time, whatever the heck I'm talking about next time, I will see you all then and there. Peace out, everybody.